Good morning and welcome to One Baha'i, that regular show where I just sit back and talk a little bit about my own thoughts on the Baha'i faith. It's nothing official, just me, one individual. So this morning, I actually wasn't planning on recording anything. I have a couple of special orders. Actually, I have one really big special order I need to get out by tomorrow. So I'm going to be working my fingers to the bone. But it just didn't feel right missing a day. Even though I said that I wouldn't be able to do it daily now that I'm starting work again, it just didn't feel right. So I hadn't given a lot of thought as to what I wanted to talk about. So as I was reading my morning writings, I grabbed a copy of the Hidden Words, opened at random. I said, God, if you want me to talk about something, show me a hidden word that inspires me to talk about it this morning. I figured usually when I read a hidden word to meditate on all day, I don't really want to talk about it right after I read it. Part of the reason I read the writings in the morning is that I want to meditate on them throughout the day. So I opened the book and I read this one, which I've read many, many times, and immediately a story came to mind. So I'm recording it. It's the Arabic Hidden Words, number 31. I'm sure you all know it by heart. O son of being, bring thyself to account each day ere thou art summoned to a reckoning. For death, unheralded, shall come upon thee, and thou shalt be called to give account for thy deeds. Okay, two stories come to mind. The first is I was sitting in a meeting, and we were all kind of waiting for the meeting to begin. Not everybody had shown up yet. We were all just sitting around chatting. And there was this one man. He was an older Persian man, very, very knowledgeable in the faith. We all really looked up to him and honored his knowledge and his wisdom. Very soft-spoken, very quiet, somber demeanor. And whenever we had a question about the writings, he was usually one of the first persons we would turn to ask. And that morning, one of my friends turned to him and he said, "My friend, there is a hidden word. I'm trying to remember how it goes." And this older Persian gentleman, he says, "Well, how does it begin?" And I said, "O son of." And this gentleman, the older Persian gentleman, his eyes got really wide and he just started laughing. I've never seen him laugh so hard in my life. It was so beautiful. So every time I read a hidden word, I always remember that. O son of. Yeah. Okay, now, this particular hidden word. Whoa, sorry, I just kicked the camera. Oh my gosh. Hope I didn't hurt you. Bring thyself to account each day. You know, when I first became a Baha'i, those many years ago. By the way, I just had to move my garage from one garage to another because, we live in military housing and the military said, you have to move garages, so I did. And as I was going through stuff and recycling tons, I found the letter that I received from the U.S. National Assembly when I declared. Way back in 1988. It was so beautiful to see that letter again. Anyways, when I became a Baha'i, there were many things in the writings that I had disagreed with, and over the years of my studying, I would come to realize that Baha'u'llah was right. And eventually, when I read something and said, "Oh, I disagree. Wait a minute, Baha'u'llah said it, he must be right," that was when I said, "I'm a follower." That was when I declared. That, to me, was the moment that I realized I was a Baha'i because I was convinced that Baha'u'llah knew more than I did. And at that moment, I decided that when I would go through the writings and find something that was a command, I would take it as, well, gospel. And I would strive to live to that command. And I remember I had read the hidden words a few times before becoming a Baha'i. But after declaring, when I read this one, I realized for myself, this was a command. I said to myself, Baha'u'llah is not saying, well, it would be nice if you would bring yourself to account each day. He didn't say, oh, you might want to bring yourself to account each day. He said, bring yourself to account each day. And to me, that was a command. And so I decided that I would bring myself to account each day. But, well, the question was, how? What does that mean? Okay, I grew up in a Jewish family, Christian culture, and bringing myself to account meant looking back over my day, because I usually do it at the end of the day. You can do it any time, but I choose to do it at the end of the day as I'm kind of looking back over my day. And to me, it meant looking back and seeing all the things I did wrong and striving to do better the next day. So every night I would go to sleep. I would go up to my room, I would say some prayers, and then I would review my day and I would see all the things that I did that I could have done better, and I would try to do better the next day. And after a couple of months of this, I was so depressed. So I went back to this hidden word, which was the source of my depression, and I said, bring thyself to account. And I'm sure you noticed this already. I realized if you're an accountant and all you're doing is taking into account the negatives, the expenditures, well, you're a pretty bad accountant. You need to take into account the money coming in also, the positives. So I decided that I would change how I was doing this. So then, when I would bring myself to account, I would look at the good things I had done during the day, and I would look at the bad things I had done during the day. I would look at the really good things I had done and the really not so good things. And if I did a not so good thing, I kind of made sure that I had a good thing to balance it. And I'm sure you see the problem there. As I was doing this month after month, if I did something bad, I tried to make sure I did something good. But this tacitly gave me the permission that if I did something good, I could do something not so good to balance it. And I realized life is not about balance. Life is about growth. So then I started changing how I did my accounting every day. Bring thyself to account each day. And what I started doing after that, and pretty much ever since, at the end of the day, I look back. But during the day, when I am getting ready to do something, I think to myself, hey, I have to take this into account at the end of the day. Am I going to be happy or sad that I did it? And it was at that point that it started changing my behavior. And that was when I realized for myself that this was, for me, the point of this. To modify my behavior so that I was happy with my actions at the end of the day. I still fall short many, many days, but I strive to do better. Now, years later, when I started really looking at the law of the right of God, huququ'l'able, I realized that the same thing was happening. I would make a purchase and I would ask myself, is this a need or is this a want? Because in the right of God, in the huququ'l'able, if when you look over your expenditures, your needs are huquq free. They're not huququ'l'able. And all the extra money that you have beyond your basic needs, well, that's what you pay your right of God on. Now, I usually had been living paycheck to paycheck, so I never really had a savings account, but I still had wealth because I could still buy extras, perks. I didn't need to buy that paperback book to read, so I would include that in my wants column. And when my wants column got close to that 19 mythicals of gold, then I would save my money so that I could pay my right of God. And this worked for me for many years. It suited my budget. It worked well for how I was earning my money. I could have put the money aside ahead of time. I wasn't that disciplined. But what I was doing was I would look at a $10 paperback and I would say, all right, well, it's $10 and an extra $1.50 in tax plus an extra $2 for huququ'l'able. I didn't round it. I was actually a little more careful. And I would say, okay, the real cost is $14. I'm willing to spend $10 on this book. Am I willing to spend $14? And it was this method of thinking that modified my behavior throughout the day. It began with, bring thyself to account each day, and has continued on to my calculation of the right of God. So this morning, when I was getting ready to start my work, I said, all right, it's going to take me half an hour to film and get this onto the internet. I could either spend that half an hour or I could do an extra half hour of my work. And I said, at the end of the day, will I be satisfied if I haven't done this? And I thought, I'm not going to be satisfied. So I modified my behavior because I would need to bring myself to account. And I decided to film this morning. And even before then, I said, God, please, if there's anything you want me to talk about, show it to me in the writings. And I grabbed a book off the bookshelf and I opened it at random, and this was the one that I found. So, there you are. 13 minutes later, one more episode, time to load it on the computer and get to work. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. We'll see if I'm able to do it again tomorrow. In the meantime, hit the share, hit the like, hit yourself on the nose, I don't know, whatever. Just be safe, enjoy the day, and, count your blessings. We'll talk again soon.